Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we talked about the problems with being healthy, and being healthy is a wonderful thing. It makes you more aware, alert, and alive. The problem is, you're probably going to be the only person in your neighborhood, or maybe in your whole city, who's actually cognizant and aware of reality in any way, shape, or form. And it's really difficult. For example, this happened to me today. Some friends, I was over visiting friends, and they insisted on feeding me, and they feed lots of children, so they were eating out of very cheap plastic bowls, and they were cooking with canola oil in a Teflon frying pan. And so they insisted that I eat with them. And, they're very lovely people, so I can't say no. And canola oil is actually, the word canola is actually a hybridization of the word Canadian and oil. And it's a very popular oil, at least in the United States, and apparently it's here in Europe it's popular as well. Canadian oil, canola oil, is actually made from the rapeseed plant. The rapeseed plant traditionally is used for only one reason: pesticide. And I used to use canola oil. I used to get it at Trader Joe's in Pasadena, and I thought it was really great until I read a report somewhere that canola oil, Canadian oil, is made from rapeseed. Rapeseed in Canada is used for only one thing: pesticide. So how we went from a product that was only used as a pesticide. And by the way, I tested this. I took some canola oil and put it in my sprayer, which I normally would make a collection of tobacco and garlic and a few other things. A little soap, a little dish soap is very nice. And I would use that to spray my plants in the garden with, and it worked really well. Well, I tried, just for the heck of it, I tried some canola oil as a pesticide. It worked really good. So I just had a meal from very nice people. I couldn't say anything. In plastic bowls that were toxic, in canola oil, which is a pesticide, and in a Teflon frying pan, which is just lethal. And, little children are eating this. And what can you say? So this is the other problem with being healthy. You just have to stop talking, because no one's going to understand anything you're trying to say, and you'll just upset and confuse people. So I've slowly learned this over the 4 decades that I've been doing this, talking to people, trying to get them to say, oh, by the way, you're standing on the railroad tracks, and oh, by the way, that's a train coming. I've finally, almost to the point, I hope, I pray, that I can actually see people standing on the railroad tracks and keep my mouth shut and keep walking. It's frankly too late in the day. If they haven't gotten it by now, honestly, they never will. Unless, of course, the planetary lightning, as what I hope it will do, gives us that extra little spark of electrical current, a little bit of energy, and will wake people up. Of course, it's, again, way too little, way too late. But, here's hoping. It's hard, honestly, not to say something when you see people, families, standing on the railroad track and are actually waving at the train as it comes down. It's going to, do what trains do when they hit things. So tonight I thought we would chat about words have power. And it's true that the spoken word has power. You look in magic, you look in science, you look in quantum physics, vibration. Vibration is energy, energy is power. The spoken word has power. But what I've come to realize is that the written word has infinite power. The written word, once printed on a page, can be read over and over and over again. And if you're lucky enough to be a published author, well, I'm an author, I wouldn't call myself published, but the books will begin to spread. And so the spoken word spoken once and it becomes part of the universal record of the universe that you and I live in. Remember, we talked about how Western scientists have finally admitted or figured out that the universe that you and I live in is actually inside of a giant bubble, a giant soap bubble. The entire universe, billions and billions of stars inside of a galaxy, and there's billions and billions of galaxies in a universe, and all of this is contained in a bubble. We live in a soap bubble. And you and I were chatting about the fact that Western scientists have also finally gotten to the point where they can admit, at least to themselves, that there are 10 different dimensions, 10 different realities coexisting in this bubble universe all at the same time. So there are 10 different versions of you and me, all existing at the same time, living in the same physical space. But because each of those universes vibrates at a different frequency, we don't see them. You and I can talk and interact and have a cup of coffee and pet a cat and, bark at a dog, because you and I vibrate, our atoms vibrate at the same frequency. Let's say 100 megahertz, could be 200 megahertz. But because you and I, our atoms in our body, vibrate at the same frequency, you and I can interact. The truth is, you and I are basically just empty space, beyond the obvious insult. We're made up of atoms. Atoms are mostly empty space. There's a neutron in the middle, a particle that has no charge, such as our sun. The neutron is surrounded by orbiting particles, protons and neutrons, which obviously carry a positive and negative charge, just like our sun has a negative charge, and the planets that circle it have positive and negative charges, which is why we get into a problem when the dead brown dwarf star passes through the plane of our solar system. It also has a charge. It probably shouldn't, but for some reason it does. And as it passes through the plane of our solar system, this giant atom, basically, which our solar system is, there's going to be an electrical discharge, a short circuit, positive to positive, negative to negative. Just look at the surface of Mars. You can see massive scarring on the face of Mars that could only have been done by an electrical discharge, lightning. But in this universe that you and I live, you and I describe this as these 10 different universes, or these 10 different dimensions existing in this universe simultaneously, as record albums in an old record player, where you used to be able to stack 5 or 6, maybe 7 record albums on the spindle and turn the manual record player on, and it would automatically drop the next record down onto the plate, and the plate would spin, and the arm would lift up, swing over to the album, and touch down. And wherever the needle touched down, the album would begin to play. Well, if let's say there's 10 record albums on that spindle, and each of those represents one reality, where you and I live simultaneously in 10 different realities. Let's say each of those record albums has a slightly different frequency. Like the radio in your car. Today you want to listen to rock and roll. You turn it to 100.1 on your FM radio dial. Well, there's a radio station somewhere broadcasting at 100.1 megahertz. So you can now listen to rock and roll. But in the same physical space, in the same physical time, there's another radio station broadcasting at 100.2 megahertz, using the exact same space at exactly the same time. It's playing country and western music. So you adjust your radio to 100.2 on the FM radio dial. You're now listening to country and western. So let's say you have a record album, a record player, and it has 10 albums on the spindle. I don't recommend that because it will stop working, but for, sake of argument. You and I exist 10 different times at the same time in the same place. in this universe right here, right now. Western scientists admit that. Probably there's hundreds, thousands, millions, trillions of different dimensions in this bubble universe we're in. But it all comes down to energy. The spoken word has power. Words have power. Once spoken, that word can never be called back. It can never be returned. So again, the record album, it contains little valleys. And in those valleys are grooves. And every time the needle of the record player touches one of those grooves, it produces a sound. And that sound will always be there. It'll always be the same sound because it's forever part of that dimension. It's forever part of our universe. Words have power. Words are not simply thoughts that we express, but we add to the total sum of our universe every time we speak. You and I create the universe simply by existing. This is why I'm always, horrified when people go out of their way to write horror stories or to do horrific things or make horrific, scary movies. Because words have power. And since you and I, simply by existing, help create the universe, any words we speak, any dramas we put on, any movies that we make, that becomes a part of the universe. And that will manifest somewhere in our universe because it has no place else to go. So when I say words have power, thoughts have power, you and I create the universe inside of this bubble. It's one of the reasons our masters, junior management at Haight Incorporated, why they just despise and loathe and fear us. Because you and I create. All they can do is destroy. You and I can evolve. All they can do is be the same shade of gray they've always been and always will be. Because they're too lazy, they're too selfish, they're too stupid, they're too arrogant to actually do something to make themselves better. But just like those record albums on that old record player, the word once spoken cannot be taken back. It will exist as long as that record album exists. So be careful, honestly, with what you say to people, what you do to your world, what you do to yourself. Because once you create it, I don't think it ever goes away. It's stored somewhere within our reality. So the record album that you and I are living on right now, this dimension, this reality, the spoken word has power. Now imagine the written word has infinite power because, okay, you said it, but what if you write it down? And it becomes a book. And millions upon millions of people read that book. Now the spoken word has power. The written word has infinite power. Because now it becomes physical itself in our universe. It exists both as a vibration and as a physical representation of the word. You and I create the universe simply by existing. That's why our masters want us dead. That's why they want to hurt us. You and I can evolve. They cannot. Just something to think about. The ancient Celtic blessing that I use at the end of the show, I begin to understand more and more every day. And I hope you do too. I hope that we have these little chats, these little discussions. I hope that, please don't believe, of course, anything I say. Please never do that. But maybe if we talk about it, you'll have your own ideas. Have your own ideas, run with them. That's all I'm really hoping for now. I do this all by myself. I get no help from anyone. My beautiful guardian angel in Wisconsin has issues of her own, so I'm all alone once again. And it would be nice if I had a corporate sponsor, but for now, it's just me and you. And we're just talking. So if any of my wild stories amuses you, helps you, makes you think, gives you some ideas, maybe if you have some ideas of yourself, of your own ideas, why don't you explore them? Let's see if we can make, simply by being here, make this universe a better place. Just a thought. May you live as long as you wish. May you love as long as you live. For the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Blue Hawk. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.